So without further ado, I want to start bringing some of our teachers for today on. And like I said, the topic is the meaning of Christmas. And I was just thinking, I'm not going to take any time because everybody's got 10 minutes each. And I will keep the time for you. But I was just thinking about me, and I'm sure most of you know my story. I've written about it, I've taught about it, I've blogged about my experience with Christmas. And I absolutely hated Christmas. Like, I was annoying. No, I was. And finally, I had a really good friend say to me, you got to cut it out. I think, being a single mom for so long and Christmas to me was like standing in line in the mall, coat in hand, sweating, overspending, overgiving, feeling like resentful, like I give all year. Why do I have to? Who's going to tell me I have to give now? And I was just all caught up in the stress of it all. And I cannot believe the difference I feel about Christmas today. I could cry, and I have all of you really to thank. Since I started coming here, since I started studying the course, and since I started to decide to look at it and to find out the real meaning. And I was just even thinking, I think a couple of years ago, I know this is about birthing the highest in us. And maybe last year, the year before, I even thought that that's what I was doing. I was trying to make way for something to be birthed through me that wasn't in me already. And now, it's already, I know it already happened. I am that light already. And it just keeps evolving and keeps getting richer. And I just really, I'm grateful for all of you. It's like, once you start to do this work, I just look at how I was at the holidays and now, and that's just one of the many examples in my life, but it's like my whole nervous system is different. It's just different during the holiday season. It's like everything got beautiful and everyone got nicer. And, it was me. So, we can always, I can see that in so many other places in my life, but this time of the year, it's really a profound difference from where I was several years ago. So I'm excited to hear everybody here today. And we're going to open with our beloved sister / camera woman, Bonnie Kimball.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Hi. I'm not sure I know how to do this mic. Stay down a little. I think Linda rock started to death. I don't. Okay. All right. The stand is gone. So when Lisa asked me to do this, I thought, yeah, no problem. And then a couple of days ago, I just had thoughts swirling in my head, and they're all over, and nothing was really making sense. And then it would just kind of just go all over the place. So last night I decided to just sit and did a little meditation and just wrote something out. And so I'm going to read from that. But I can't believe how nervous I am. The true meaning of Christmas is, the birthing of Christ in us all. And then that's kind of it in a nutshell. But here, anyway. So I hope I'm going to get something out of this. Well, so some of my things, I have these thoughts and they're in my heart and I can't come up with the words. And I realize that, what's in us, our Christ self, a lot of times can't compute into 3D, into the bodies that we're here. So anyway, so I have this here, the real meaning of Christmas. And this is me. I am reading this, so it probably sounds like this. So Christmas for me starts around the latter part of November and ends around the first part of January. And from the end of November, we are preparing for the birth of Christ. For me, it's like when animals migrate, there's this internal knowing that's not of the body. It's like a homing device that's deep within. I'm going to start crying. That's what that's what it does to me. I just feel it so intensely. And like I said, I don't mind crying, but I'm usually an ugly crier and I can't talk. Otherwise, I would just bawl the whole time. So, it's like a homing device. It's deep within, and it points to my truth. So, all of a sudden, I want to listen to Christmas music. I put it on in my car, and most times I just sit and cry listening to it. Yeah. So, and it's a time I want to spend with friends, with my family, and I just like to have a lot of quiet time alone too. And long before the course, way back as a young adult, I always felt this pull inside of me. I always decorated, and unlike Linda, I decorated and I listened to the Christmas music. And I always like to sit in silence in the darkened room with my tree all lit up and listen to the music and just feel it. And that was probably about the only time of year that I was kind of like at any kind of peace with anything, because I was very, and I'm a rock and roll girl, but I really liked the quiet, traditional music. I just felt it. And, and it was always the pull in it. And like I said, it's not of the body. So the music, the decorations, the fellowship, the giving, the receiving, the fattening up for hibernation, and it's all a vibration and in the flow of love. It's a vibration. So I love bringing the feeling of magic into my home for the kids. It was always a time of wonder and joy for them, but I always reminded them of what it was all about. And I didn't go to church a lot. I have to say I didn't go to church a lot, but I've always loved Jesus. And I don't know what that connection was, but I do now. But I always loved Jesus. So, and I love celebrating the birth of Jesus. So one year I baked a birthday cake for Jesus. And I had my nephew Ben there, and I made all the kids sing happy birthday to Jesus. And they're all scarred for life. They all remind me of that. They're like, remember when you made us sing happy birthday to Jesus? So but I just, because I always wanted to bring them back to that. So after finding the course, I understand what this migrational pull is at my soul. And it's a time of preparing for the birthing of Christ. And it's not a Christ that is out there. And it's not a mythical baby in a manger in a faraway land some 2,500 years ago, the Son of God. It is the Christ in me. It's the Christ in you. And it's the Christ in everybody that I see and that I meet. And just going over a few Christmas songs, I thought I would put a few lines out. If you think about it, the words that come out, joy to the world, the Lord has come. We are that. That's us. Woo-hoo! Yeah. Let every heart prepare him room. I'm going to cry again. Joy, hope, peace on earth, Savior. His law is love. His gospel is peace. It's my law is love. My gospel is peace. So, and there's more songs, and I just sit and cry out them all. Alan Jackson and Alison Krauss sings this one, The Angels Cried. Oh, I cried. The angel's crying, the Christ is crying. And, and they sing, Alan Jackson sings another one, New Kid in Town. So I kind of like some of them. And so I'm going to lead you all through an interactive meditation. And I was inspired by Bill Free last week with the awareness. Awareness, anything that's in my awareness is me. It's me. So I would like you all, love streamers, everyone in this room, I'd like you all to close your eyes and put your hand on your heart. And I want you to repeat after me. So this is where it's interactive. So everyone, love streamers, say it out loud. I'm going to take you on a journey. I am that shining star. A guiding light, showering the weary of the world with guidance. I am that young woman, body swollen with pregnancy, seeking a place to give birth. I am that young man, walking alongside that woman, giving complete trust in God. I am the shepherd boy, keeping watch on the flocks, the land, and the star. I am three wise men, traveling by that guiding light, bearing gifts for the new king. I am the innkeeper, making room. I am the animals in the stable, vigilant and bearing witness. I am that Christ baby, born into the world as Savior. I am the Christ. I am the Savior. I am holiness itself. I am that I am. I love you guys. Thank you all for listening to me.
So good. I love that. I'm totally baking a cake for Jesus too. And angel food, right, Bonnie? Nancy, would you like to go next?
Already there have been so many connections with what I've been entertaining and thinking about and wanting to speak. So it starts with me being in the Newburyport Choral Society for 15 weeks of practice and a selection of music that is completely challenging. Like, it seems like every piece was a challenge, certainly for me and apparently for a lot of other people as well. So I am, some of the people in the Sunday group have already heard of it. I'm ranting, I'm complaining, I'm saying, they said any level of competence. And here I am. I have vague piano lessons from ninth grade one year, whether I needed it or not. And I sang with my mom in the church choir, where she also was an alto, but she was famous for making up the part as we went along. When I finally learned enough to read music and say, I looked at her once and I said, Mom, that's not what it says here. And she says, I know. And she just kept going. So my idea of singing is to sort of listen and hear what might sound good and try it out. Well, that's not what the director wants. Not even close. So this 15 weeks have been kind of a compression for me. I don't know if you were here a couple years back when I talked about, that was from the artist, the compression and expansion, where Jesus in the book, when he came to be with the artist, talked about the idea of that we're compressed so we can expand. So when I get to all these lyrics, especially the lyrics, although even the music, last night was our full out, what they call dress rehearsal, which means the orchestra and the soloists and the choir of 140-ish people and the kids choir are all there to put all this together. And there were some parts I was seriously faking, smiling as I went, and I'd given myself permission to do that and keep going. But lots of the lyrics and the lyric phrases all of a sudden had a bigger, different meaning to me. One of the big ones was silent night. Night. It's night when Jesus was born. It wasn't in broad daylight. It was in the darkness of our pain and our compression and our struggle. And that's when the time came. And that's when we could see the star. If it weren't dark, we couldn't even see the star if we weren't maybe down in a hole or struggling with something. And it doesn't mean everything's terrible. It just means that's on the top of my list, and I keep coming back to it. And so like it's something I keep picking at until I keep paying attention to whatever it's about. So somehow it seemed like the lyrics of "O Holy Night" have a different, not so different, expanded kind of meaning to me. And this is the program for the Saturday and Sunday concerts, and it's called Remembrance and Peace. So also in the dark, the director is trying to give us the idea that the 100th anniversary of the signing of the armistice for World War I did not in fact bring peace or love. It brought ceasefire. And so it's a form that sort of says, here, 100 years later, we still have room to choose love. So the lyrics, "O holy night," again, it's night. It's holy, partly because it's night. So when we're in the darkness and we're struggling and we're not confident, we can remember that that too is holy. It's holy as we learn and grow. The stars are brightly shining. So even in the night, there's stars up there. There may be clouds, some of which we put in our own way, but the stars are there. So we get to watch for those little peaks of light that are available to encourage us, sometimes from a brother or sister, sometimes from the song lyrics, sometimes from the presence or the messages we hear from each other. It's the night of our dear Savior's birth. When Jesus comes, Christ consciousness comes to me out of the night, out of the dark. And that's when I can allow it. And that's when he's born. Long lay the world in sin and error pining. So we've struggled. We have a history of it. Till he appeared and the Spirit felt its worth. So it's only from that vulnerable, let go, give up, fall on your knees kind of thing that I'm able to actually hear, to allow the light in, to let go. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices. And don't we know that when we experience a miracle, we find the joy? You know, we recognize it, we've learned to recognize it, we've learned to expect it, to choose it, and we can do that for ourselves. And so then you find the joy of having a different perspective than you had before. For yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. And then fall on your knees, both before and after the light comes. And it's the let go, it's the trust. It's the, first is the trust, and then you can move to actually asking, right? So you fall on your knees and you ask for what you need help on. And that's a metaphor to me. Every once in a while I am desperate enough or have been desperate enough to actually be on my knees and say my prayer. But a lot of times I'm doing something else and it's just a tape running through my head, and I choose at my thoughts to be different. Hear the angel voices, and there's lots of them in lots of forms. And if we look for the angel voices, that's what we see and hear. O night divine, O night when Christ was born, O night, O holy night, O night divine. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. David, do you want to come up next? Yeah, I just like I was saying, things are so much more beautiful, and now the songs just get richer and richer. And I hadn't realized that, that song I knew was Fall on Your Knees, but then once the light comes, fall on your knees again. Oh, thank you.
Oh, I've gotten a lot out of the first two, so. Oh, I feel inspired. What does Christmas mean to me? For me, it means a lot of memory going way back. I don't know about you, but I first heard about Christmas when I was a child. That was supposed to be a funny line. And when I was a child, Christmas to me was like a bookmark in ordinary, struggling life. And that's the way it was for me as a kid. I got a pass. No matter how bad I might have been, it just seemed like at Christmas time, my parents were able to pull it together. I can remember lying on my back, looking up through the Christmas tree, and just disappearing into that world of light and toys and little paper chains. And I used to do that for a long, long time. And we went to church every Sunday. And one of my favorite verses as a young child, first of all, there's a prayer that I was brought up with. My dad used to take me to bed every night. And my next door neighbor was Catholic, and she had the "Now I lay me down to sleep, if I should die before I wake." I was very grateful that I didn't have that particular prayer. The one that I had was, "Jesus, tender little shepherd, bless thy little lamb tonight. Thou hast kept me through the darkness. Keep me till the morning light." And I really had in that child understanding that I was the lamb and Jesus was the shepherd. So I always grew up with, unlike God, Jesus was kind of my friend and caretaker, especially at night when I was saying my prayer. So then my parents gave me probably, I think, one of the greatest gifts I ever received as a child. It was a 45 RPM set, for 2 records on both sides of Lionel Barrymore doing a brief version of A Christmas Carol. That's when I first heard about Scrooge and the whole tale of that. And that had, every Christmas, we brought that out and listened to it, and sometimes in between. And I can't tell you the impact that that had on me in terms of really a deeper understanding of Christmas from a childlike perspective. Because I was there when his nephew came to the shop where Scrooge was to wish him a Merry Christmas. And he said, "Ah, bog humbug. I wish every Christian that went around with Merry Christmas on his lips would be buried, boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stick of holly through his heart." As I've gotten to be an adult, I've had those days. So, and then he was scared when the spirits visited him. He got to see himself as a child. What an impact that was on me, because he saw how lonely he was. He saw how bereft he was of love. And I can remember feeling that in my soul. And then the second one, he was scared for the second spirit that came to visit him and shattered the curtains. And he said, okay. And he went. And then he learned about the possibilities of Tiny Tim maybe dying and on all of this. And then when the Christmas future came, he was no longer scared. He saw the Spirit and he said, "Hello, Spirit. I know your purpose is to do me good. Lead on." And I felt that, I could cling on to that. I know your purpose is to do me good. And then the next scene, he wakes up and it's not too late. It's not too late. And he looks out the window and says, "Boy, what day is it?" Little boy says, "Christmas Day." Oh my gosh, he was so grateful. And asked the boy to go down and buy a goose. And he was transformed. And in my little boy understanding, I got that transformation because that was me. I just wanted to be good, even though at times I stole candy from the store. I lied to my parents. All this accumulation of things that made me think I was separate from everybody. But I would hear that story. And I would say, that's me. It's Christmas Day. I have a new chance. I'm not bad. I'm okay. And so, fast forward many, many years, my granddaughter is born. And I'm holding this little one with a little breath against my neck. And I'm feeling a peace that I've never known before, even through Christmases, and a connection there. And then the Christmases come. And in my relationship with this beautiful granddaughter, Julia, I love to tell her stories. And her favorite one, early on, was the 3 little pigs. And the story of the big bad wolf coming to try to get the pigs. Well, I couldn't leave that story there because I have a pretty good imagination that was fermented and then really realized when I was a kid. That was the gift of some of the trauma in my home because I had to escape in fantasy. But in that fantasy, I could be in peace. When the world was caving in on me on the outside, I had this inner world going on. And so I created stories of what happened in the life of the big bad wolf, who was just an animal who's trodden upon and trying to get revenge and trying to survive and all this. So I made up stories for Julia. I continued on all the travails and stories about the big bad wolf, and she loved it. It would always start with the pigs, but then he would dress up and try to be somebody else, and he'd get thrown in the hospital, and he'd get in trouble for this, trouble for that. And he could never fool the people because his tail would always stick out under the dress that he was dressed in, trying to sell flowers and things. And she was fascinated. Her fascination just kept me spinning these stories every week, every month, a new story. So then she moved to Texas about 4 years ago. So the big bad wolf started writing her letters. And because things were very, very different. But a report had to be given. So I have a copy of one of the letters that the big bad wolf sent to Julia. It's a Christmas letter. December 7th, 2014. Dear Julia, it's me again. I have to write you and tell you about how crazy it is around here. It's Christmas time. And the animals in the forest are getting nutty. Well, only the squirrel is truly nutty. He's gathering up all the nuts he can find, but everyone else is running around finding gifts to take to the Christmas party. Oh yes, there's going to be the annual Christmas party in the forest. Now we have 30 acres of conservation land and woods behind our house, and Julia and I used to take walks looking for the big bad wolf. Oh yes, there's going to be an annual Christmas party. I made them wait to have the party until after Christmas. Why? Well, I want you to come because she couldn't make it until after Christmas. I told them I have some special entertainment and you are it. I would like you to come to the party and play your violin for all the animals. Also, I want you to juggle for them. She learned how to juggle. Do you think you can juggle 3 walnuts? The squirrel didn't believe it could be done. I said, yes, it can. I know this kid named Julia who can juggle. You can juggle, right, Julia? Have you been practicing? I tried it with my tail, but I couldn't make it work. By the way, your papa wants to know if it's all right if he gets you a boy gift this year instead of a girl gift. I don't know what it will be. Not a helicopter. That was last year. I don't know what he has in mind, but he's got something up his sleeve. By the way, I am worried about your mammy. I went up to the house the other day, and I heard her yelling, Julia's coming, Julia's coming. So I peeked in the window. She's dancing around, putting new ribbons on the big green wreaths. Then she puts a snowman on the front porch and a bear hugging a tree with Christmas lights wrapped around it. It was weird. And your papa is up on a ladder stringing white lights all around the roof of the porches. He's got lights all over the place. What? Does he think it's Walmart? And Mammy starts singing Christmas carols, and the two of them start dancing. What is going on? I couldn't believe my eyes. Then the Christmas carols stop, and your papa goes over to the CD player, and the next thing I hear is a cat singing. A cat? What? How did a cat get into the house and start singing? And that silly cat is meowing Christmas carols. Very strange. Then on another song, I hear a dog barking. I peek through another window, but I don't see a dog, but I hear one barking to the song. That is a very strange house. Mammy is dancing and yelling, Julia's coming. Papa's stringing lights from the ladders. Cats are singing. Dogs are barking. There's lights all over the place, not to mention red plants with bows. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get away from there and run back into the woods where it's safe. Julia, you must come soon because Mammy and Papa's place is becoming a nut house. Merry Christmas, the Big Bad Wolf.
So awesome. What a lucky little granddaughter. Man, can you imagine? And, you know, all these stories and the songs that you guys are unbelievable. My heart is open. But all these stories and these Christmas movies and these songs, like, I guess I was totally out of it and asleep. And I didn't know. Like, my favorite movie has always been It's a Wonderful Life. Or Christmas Vacation, too. But it's all about us. It's all, you know, like George Bailey and, you know, this great guy who just was dragged to his knees. I mean, everything that could go wrong did. People stole money from him. He completely lost his business, and nothing was going right. And he was snapping at his kids who didn't deserve it, and yelling at neighbors, disillusioning his wife. He went and got drunk and wrecked his car, hit his car in a tree, his lips bleeding. You know, our lowest point, our darkness. And then he asks. That's all we have to do. He asks, if I need help. And in comes Clarence, who is the Holy Spirit. In every right, Clarence is the Holy Spirit who comes down and does what? Like, shows George Bailey how magnificent he is, how important he is, and what a difference he makes to the sonship and how needed he is. And just that shift in perception, George gets zoomed back into that old life, right? Feels it, his lips bleeding again. He's like, my lips bleeding. Everything that, you know, he's running through the town, that old, you know, this Potter's, whatever, that old bank that used to bring him so much angst and pain. Now he was so happy to see it. That knob on the stairway that was so frustrating to him, he's kissing it when it comes off. And so he asked, and he was just shown the truth, and the world didn't change, but the way he saw it changed. And like, why didn't I get this before? And it seems to be in every song and in everyone. And anyway, John, do you want to come up here?
All right. Hello. It's nice to be here. My spiritual family that I haven't seen for a couple months. Good to see everybody.
Good to have you back, John.
Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to start with not really meditation, but just close your eyes for a minute and just think back to a really wonderful Christmas morning that you had, whenever that was. Maybe it had some music, some smells, some noises, gifts, but most importantly, likely relationships. Maybe some visitors, grandparents, children, significant others, siblings, cousins, and just hold on to that for a minute. You can open your eyes and just feel the joy that brings to you. Because that's, to me, is what Christmas is for me. That's where I always go back to. I think of my aunt. My aunt was my mother's sister, Auntie Ann. We used to spend most of our Christmases at my grandmother's house or my aunt's house. And there were 9 of us with my siblings, me, and my cousins. And then as we all got older, most of us had 2 to 3 kids. So it got pretty hectic. And but I loved it. I loved all the noises and the playing and the kids and all that came with Christmas. And I miss a lot of it. One of the things that I looked up before I did this talk was the birth of Jesus is the awakening of our awareness of God as me and you. That's my words, my take on what I read, but it's also the birth of the end of sacrifice. And I really like the concept or the reality of Jesus being the awakening of God in us, and to celebrate that all the time, but specifically on Christmas, and to feel the authenticity that comes up in us in the joy and how we can let go of our ego and just be in that holy instant space where you can drop off all guilt, all sacrifice, all pain, be present, and bring in communication with each other, to hold the holiness of our relationship with each other in that moment. And so I think Jesus, to me, represents that in all of us. It reminds us that it's there. I love Christmas in all its advertisements and the lights, all of it. I think it's all wonderful because I think all of it is a reminder, but it's also an opportunity to remind everybody else. Just to say Merry Christmas to people brings them to that moment. In shopping and all the hectic and all the music, it's all an opportunity. So let's see. I had an interesting morning coming here. Well, let me go back. Last week, I was driving down the road, and I was heading to visit my dad, and it's about 2.5 hours drive. And so I get pretty reflective on the way there. He's in a home. He's got Alzheimer's. He doesn't usually remember me until I'm there, and then he remembers me. And so it's a really powerful, really great connection. And so I'm kind of in that mode, and I look at my GPS for a minute and look up to a car stopped on the highway. So I hit the brakes, and my brakes go. Brake line broke. I was in a borrowed car, and realized I'm doing about 50, and there's no way I'm going to stop. So I'm standing on the brakes, and I aim my car right between the Meridian and the other car beside me and figure, well, I'm not going to fit. But it looks like a good spot to put it, so I head right into the middle of it, and the brakes finally lock up. So I slid right past the first car, and nothing happened. Didn't hit anything. And I'm sitting there, and the guy in the car next to me is yelling at me. And which was kind of funny in a way, because he has no idea, like, yelling's a little better than what I just went through. But that holy instant, that being present in the moment, right there was interesting to me. How talk about awakening. You trust all this stuff around you, or the mechanics and everything, and when something fails, you're right in that moment. And I was pretty lucky, and the car, so I was able to get it to where I was going. I had to do another 200 or 300 miles driving that day, and so I drove it all around. It got me everywhere, and got my dad to the doctors, which was another kind of holy instant of. So my dad and I have been through a lot, and recently we've reconnected on a really great level, very authentic, very connected. And so my sister went away. She works for FEMA, so she was gone. So I had to go bring him to the doctors, and to be with him and remembering all the times that we're together. And here I am now, walking him around, getting him dressed, getting him undressed. I mean, just helping him with everything. Getting in the car, and then reminding him every 10 minutes where we're going, what we're doing. And it was really kind of, there's an awakening in that, of that realization of how much meaning we put on stuff that doesn't mean anything. And when you're in that moment, you realize that it's just this moment that matters. That's the only thing that is here right now. And there's no guilt, there's no pain, and there's no angst. It's just, and it was really beautiful to do that. So that's kind of part of how I feel what Christmas means to me, is there's a moment in our times, in our lives, with our families, where we can just appreciate everything, just be grateful for all of us, all of our connections. What else? There was another thing I wanted to talk about with the sacrifice, and then I think probably another minute. So the end of sacrifice, and how pain doesn't exist without sacrifice, nor does guilt. The holy instant eliminates all of it. And those are all in the book on Christmas. But how we can go there. So I brought you to the joy minute at the beginning, because that's a choice. We can go to that joy level anytime, any minute, any moment of our day, and be in our authentic self, and shed all the crap, all the meanings, all the things that don't serve us, and be authentic in the communication of the mind, which is the whole point of Jesus coming and eliminating sacrifice and pain. There we go.
Thank you so much. So good. Irene, come on. Dun, da, da, da.
Hello, everyone. These are all hard acts to follow, huh? Everyone's stories are so wonderful. I'm a hard act to follow. Yeah, okay. So where I went when I was asked to do this and speak on Christmas, I went to meditation, and I've been thinking about it. And I totally identify with everything everyone said, the words to the songs, the times in the silence, the being disappointed with it. I had a lot of stories from when I was young that we had some very poor Christmases. One of the hardest ones for me was when the firemen came to the house, and they brought a turkey and they brought a box of paper checkers marked Girl 12. I hated those men that day because I felt like they let the secret out. Now the whole world knew we were poor. That was a hard one. And that was one that I could carry around with me in the dark places. And then there's been magical ones, absolutely magical, where the abundance has been beyond, just beyond. So much abundance, so much joy, so much fun, so much music, so much food, more food than anybody should have. We've had the extremes, had the whole experience. But what came up for me when I was doing the meditation was courage. That Christmas takes courage. And I started to think about courage being like the muscle that goes with faith. It's what we bring. The one time in my life where I really, really got it, that God was an experience, Jesus was an experience, was when I achieved 30 days of sobriety. I was 38 years old, and I had had a lot of bottoms around alcohol. I could have had worse, but I was blessed. I had enough when I got to the halls of AA. And what I had been trying for years on my own but didn't work was to stop drinking. But I could never get through the weekends. The weekends were killer. I just could never get through the flipping weekends. So in the program, I achieved the 30 days, and they give you a medallion, a gift, that the 30 days had been completed. And for me, I knew I did not do that alone. I knew because I had tried on my own for so long, I didn't do it alone. I knew there was a power greater than me, something more, the presence of something gave me that gift. I knew it. And what I brought was the courage to show up at the meeting. I brought the courage to know that it wasn't working my way. And I was walking into something blank. I didn't know how it was going to look. I didn't know how you did vacations. I certainly didn't know how you did holidays without starting at the liquor store first. I thought that was like, the way Martha Stewart must have done it, right? Anyway, I was completely filled with the gift of the presence and knew in a way that I'd never known before, like viscerally, that I was not alone, and that if I surrendered my willfulness, which I now know to call my ego, and just surrendered myself to something that I couldn't identify or had no experience with, that was my only choice. And from then, as they say in program, I got a life second to none. And I got a life that was beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I think about the three wise men. That's who I kept thinking about in my meditation. Like, what should I talk about? And I thought about the three wise men, and something inspired them to follow the star. And they followed it into the darkness and into the night. And they didn't get a game plan. They did not get an agenda. They did not get like a here's how it's going to look and a guarantee it's going to work. What they got was to take one step at a time. Reminded me of the Camino. How is this going to unfold? Where are we going to go? What's it going to look like? What should I wear? Did I bring enough stuff? Do I have enough food? Did I get the right shoes? Am I going to run out of money? Oh my God, will I understand what people are talking about? And that could have frozen us. That could have frozen any of us. But we just like, nope, we're going. We're putting one foot in front of the other, just like the wise men put one foot in front of the other into the unknown. Everybody who births a child goes into the unknown. Anyone who raises a child goes into the unknown. Anyone who walks on this planet in this illusion is walking into the unknown. That takes courage. It takes courage for us to do it. That was the story for me of Jesus. I cannot do the Christmas story without doing the Easter story, because we kind of know how the story ends. And who knew? Who knew when this child came? One of my favorite Christmas songs, I have two. Feliz Navidad is one, but the other one is Mary, Did You Know? I love that song. No, she did not know, but she knew. You know, no, we do not know where we're being called or where we're being taken, but we do know. In the halls of AA, I had turned on the church and turned on God. I was so angry. And I picked up alcohol and made alcohol the God of my understanding. And in the halls, I realized that all my life I had been looking for a connection and spiritual connection. And they were there in the halls. I did not know that letting go of alcohol was going to bring me the God of my understanding. It looked like the worst possible thing that could happen. And it wasn't. It was the best. But I didn't know what I didn't know. The reason I have this pad here is because I love teaching writing. I love writing. I am a writer, and I love teaching writing. And one of the hardest things for anybody is to look at the blank page. Everybody hates the blank page. It's the unknown. It's the visible unknown. Because when you put your pen or your pencil or your crayon or your magic marker to the blank page, you have to go into a place that you can't get a guarantee what's going to come out. So my Christmas wish for all of you is that with some of the silence that we have for this holiday, and I think we all kind of like stop a little bit. The weather makes us stop. The moments make us stop, you know, where we look at the lights, or I think we all take a deep breath and look into the silence. I would encourage you to open up the blank page and start to find out what's inside of you. That's the gift that Jesus brought. Jesus knew what his inside was about. He didn't know how it was going. He didn't know how the story was going to end. He just knew he was going to be okay. I think that's the gift of Christmas. To know no matter what the night looks like, we're going to be okay in the morning. Amen.
That was so great. Kelly, are you ready? Kelly's always ready. Oh, she got props, yes. Do we need room for him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to make room for him. So this is J-Bro. I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. I stand in the presence. Namaste. This is J-Bro. He sits on my sofa all the time. My friend Barb gave him to me. She found him in the manger of a box of naked Barbie and Ken and G.I. Joes in Montana, and just said, I know who that belongs to. So she made him his little swaddling clothes here, and then sent them to me. And so he's carrying a sign, because I was talking to J-Bro this morning, talking about, you know, what do you want me to say? Which is really an interesting aside, because what I was going to say, I had written in a meditation on my iPad. And I think it was Becky that said a couple weeks ago about what happens to me a lot of the time when I'm going to say something and I'm going to teach something, I write it down and I make notes and I, copy and paste and all of that. And then I get here and I open it and it's disappeared. And it's like, okay, I guess I wasn't supposed to do that. So, anyway, I was talking to Spirit about, well, what is Christmas about? And he said, it's about the presents. It's all about the presents. And I was like, Psych. I knew that. I knew it was about the presents. He's like, no, the presents. Presence. I'm like, oh, okay, right. Yes, I knew that too. So it says happy birthday to you on his sign here because it isn't, I mean, it was the birth of Jesus, the man, right, into the world. That's about the body. But it isn't really about Jesus, the man. And I realize now that the reason I'm not doing the meditation that I had written is because Bonnie did it. And then it was echoed by every single teacher. I mean, I didn't see the Three Little Pigs thing coming. But the rest of it, everyone said already what I was going to say. And so I get it, that all minds are joined. And so everybody already said what there was to be said in terms of what I thought was mine to say. And so instead, I'm going to talk about my mom, because my mom, I love both of my parents, but my mom and I had a very special and unique connection. And she was the one who was responsible for teaching me the spirituality that I grew up with. She didn't want me to go to a traditional church. I came home one day after going to Bible school with a little friend, and I started talking about hellfire and damnation and Satan and all that. And she's like, okay, well, that's the end of that. So she started teaching me when I was about 5. She started teaching me about Jesus. We had a big picture of him hanging in our kitchen. And she talked about him as a teacher. She did not identify as a Christian. I later grew up in a Unity church in Kalamazoo, Michigan, when they finally came to town. But in the meantime, she would teach me just in our kitchen, and she would teach me about, she was the first person that I ever heard the word Christ consciousness from. And she taught me that was what Christmas was really about. And she baked a cake for Jesus every Christmas Eve too. And we sang happy birthday to him. We were separated at birth, clearly. Yeah, and one of the things that my mom, so I'm a Christmas freak. I watch A Christmas Story on Thanksgiving night every year. I just love Shoot Your Eye Out. I love that movie. And then I watch Christmas movies pretty much nonstop the entire Christmas season. I only listen to Christmas music. I go to the gym and I work out to Christmas music, and I'm a freak about it. I love the bells. I love the Christmas cheer. I don't care about the crowds. I mean, whatever. I just think it's all good. And it's all to remind us that it's about the return of the light. It's about the return of who we are in the world as the Christ. And so one of my favorite Christmases, so my mom would do the same thing often that the dad in A Christmas Story did, where, Ralphie opens up all his gifts and, he's disappointed. He's not going to show up, but he's disappointed that he didn't get the Red Ryder BB gun. And then, Dad says, wait a second, I think there's one more gift. It's, way back there behind the tree. And my mom would do that. And so my favorite Christmas that I remember, I want to say I was 12. I think it was that year. And I had been to see the movie Jesus Christ Superstar about 1 million times. It was my favorite movie. Even before the movie came out, my sister had the soundtrack from the play, from the musical, and I knew every single song by heart. And I would put it on, I'd borrow it from her, and I would sing it, and I would just bawl my eyes out. And I just never really understood that. And then I saw the movie, and I had the same reaction. I felt like I was there. I felt like I was there. And you probably all had the same experience. And so then that Christmas came, and my parents did a great job. I mean, they really tried to give me everything that was on my Christmas list and whatever. But I really wanted that album, and I didn't get it. And I was being a good sport about it. And then my mom said, I always forgot that she did that. That's the other thing. So I didn't expect it. I just always forgot. And she said, there's one more gift. Oh, damn it. I didn't even wrap it. I totally forgot. And she goes in the other room, and she comes out with the album. And I spent the rest until I wore that album out. I spent the rest of my teen years, I would just lay on my bed and I would just go into what I didn't even realize was a meditation. And I would just be there, and I would be there with him. And I would sing every song in my mind. And it was just, to me, it was a holy experience. And Christmas is a holy experience for me. And the one thing that I do want to do, even though the lyrics have already been talked about so eloquently by you, Nancy, and talked about by you, Bonnie, but my very favorite Christmas song has always been "Oh Holy Night." And I can never get through it listening to it without crying. And my BFF Linda posted yesterday, and I just listened to it this morning, the most amazing version of it that I have ever heard. And so I'm going to play it for you. And I have to look up who the artist is. I forgot. David Phelps is the artist, and in this gigantic choir. Yes. And so I'm going to play it for you. But before I do that, I just want to say, so I have a rosemary tree, a little Christmas tree that my boyfriend gave me that's made out of rosemary. That was my mother's name, Rosemary. And rosemary represents remembrance. And so I always think of her. I love the smell of it. I love the taste of it. And I always think of her when I am around rosemary. And so I'm pretty sure, and this is not the first time this has happened, that I killed the tree. Pretty sure I killed that rosemary tree. But I have spent the last week trying to revive it, trying to bring rosemary back to life. And I've repotted it and fertilized it and cut it back to within an inch of its life and all of that. But I realized when I was doing the preparation for this talk today, and just in the Christmas season in general, that bond between my mom and I is so strong, and that she taught me the meaning of Christmas, being the first person that ever said Christ consciousness to me, talking about the return of the light, and that's what the birth really was, is the light of God through you into the world, through us all into the world. That rosemary has already been brought back to life in the sense that she never left. And I think that Christmas time I feel the closest to her. So can we fire that song up? This is "Oh Holy Night." Just close your eyes.
Of the rest of us, I want to wish everyone Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and whatever you're going to be doing, may it be joyful and abundant. And the memories that were shared with us this morning, I'm just blown away. I just want to thank all of you for sharing those thoughts and those experiences with all of us. And thank you, live streamers, for being with us today. And I think there's a donate button on the chat board for you guys that are live streaming, and for you guys that are here, there's a love box in the back. And thank you for sharing in that way. And we'll give the unity prayer. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And let us just pause in this moment as the Christ that is born. Each and every moment, you are the Christ. You are what was birthed. Aware consciousness, the being that is aware of all experience. You are this presence that was spoken of in so many ways and sung about in that last song. Oh, Christ divine, oh my, this is you. This is what we are. This is the birth of the Christ awareness, the Christ that we all share. And thank you, our brother Jesus, who demonstrated the first experience of this Christ. We acknowledge you. And thank you. And everyone else. And so it is. Amen.